Hello, what's your name?
My name's Chris Carter.
And do you work for anyone in particular in these services?
I do, yes. I work for Home Instead Senior Care, and we provide care and support to older people in their own homes in the community.
So obviously we don't know how the cuts are going to affect anyone as yet, although we know there are going to be cuts. What are the things are you most concerned about?
I think what's most important to me is that we protect the most vulnerable in our society. We know there'll be cuts, we know there'll be impact, but we need to focus on those who have the greatest need and ensure that they are supported.
What sort of people are we talking about here?
In particular, sort of frail, elderly people who are often not very well, often very isolated and don't have a strong voice perhaps to talk for themselves. So I think it's very important that organisations such as Home Instead, Age UK, etc. promote the voice of the vulnerable people.
And what could happen to these people if a lot of these services were cut, some closed?
I think we'll see more isolation, more illness as a result of that, which of course will put greater demands on the NHS, local GP surgeries, hospitals, etc.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And you are?
I'm Jonathan Bolton. I'm one of the trustees of Age UK Norfolk.
So we don't know what the cuts are going to be, of course. This is something that everyone's concerned about. But what sort of things are you, as a company?
Well, as a trustee.
As a trustee.
Charity, obviously, we have enjoyed, if that's the right word, funding from social services for many years. Which is fine because it enables the trust to do all sorts of good things, not just the actual services on the ground like the care facilities at COSI and so on, but all the important things like helping people just sort out things like water bills, and the advocacy service that we provide. Elderly people in the main, not in the main, some elderly people have great difficulty in dealing with simple things like bills or credit card statements, and so we have an advocacy team that will help those people sort out their muddles. Now, with cuts in funding, that is clearly going to be affected. So the services that we provide across the board, are going to be challenged right across across Norfolk, in how far the money will stretch. So we are having to, as well as obviously look to minimising the effect of those cuts, at the same time we have to maximise our own ability to raise funds, and in the fundraising side of Age UK Norfolk we are looking to establish links with businesses, because every business has got people that work for it, and those people have got elderly parents, or those people themselves are getting on. So we think with a concerted effort over the next 3 or 4 years to increase our own profile within the business community, as an example, we stand the chance of actually increasing our own funding to maybe offset some of the cuts that might happen. So at the same time, we still have to fight to prevent those cuts from affecting us as much as they do.
Lovely, thank you.
Right.
Hello, what's your name?
I'm Ruth Brown, and I'm a befriender working in the Norwich area.
So what sort of things worry you about? We don't know what the cuts are going to be, but what kind of things are you concerned about?
Well, having visited old folk for several years now in their own homes, the thing that worries me is the carers who call in are there for such a short time. They prepare a sandwich or they prepare a meal, and they're not there long enough to find out whether the elderly folk have time to eat it or want to eat it. I've been into people's homes and found sandwiches curled up, not eaten from perhaps 2 or 3 days before. So if they are caring in the community, they need to spend more time with individuals. 15 minutes to give somebody their tea is not long enough. And the old folk are actually paying an awful lot for these services. So I think that is my biggest concern. Lots of people don't need it, they just need a friendly face and a chat. But those who do need somebody to go in should have sufficient time to do the job, because old folk presented with a sandwich by a stranger need lots of confidence and encouragement. They're suspicious of what they've given them, and they don't know the face, and often they can't understand the broken English, which is another problem.
So really, just the concern is they've got to have this care, haven't they?
Yes, but it's got to be good care.
Hello. So what's your name?
My name is David Goodman.
Right. And what sort of things are you concerned about with these cats?
I live in the rural areas, and I'm very concerned that the elderly and homebound may be affected for all the services that they receive at home, because there comes a time when people cannot move and cannot get out, and sometimes relatives cannot help as well. So all the volunteers and all these people are given so much time, they do need monetary support to pay for things like petrol and vehicles.
What about the criticism or argument, perhaps, that why should we be spending money on older people? They've had their time. And if there's any savings to be made, it should be there, and any extra money should go to younger people.
I think most of the old people in this country have worked hard and seen some very difficult times, and now they should get their payback time. And that's what they need. We have good health services, we do have longer lives. Unfortunately, not enough people can invest money at an early stage of their life to make sure they are monetarily safe.
And what's your name?
I'm Brenda Arthur.
Obviously none of us know what the cuts are going to be, but what's your biggest concern?
I'm just really concerned about the draconian cuts that we know are going to come, when I think they don't need to be quite as deep as they're going to be. And I have grave concerns that the people that are going to really, really find the effects are going to be the people that most need our support. So we're talking about young families, we're talking about older people, we're talking about people who need help and support, and they're the very ones who are going to suffer from the cuts to local authorities in terms of services that they can deliver, the cuts to social housing that are going to come, the increases in VAT, and I just think there has to be another way to do this rather than penalise people who really, really need help and support.
I mean, I have heard it said by younger people, I have to say, that, older people have had their time. It was partly their fault anyway, because they took huge pensions and they've got us into this mess. They're saying the money should go to them, not to older people.
I think that's one of the sad things that has been entrenched in our society from many years ago, which is the society of one that was pressed upon us. I think the intergenerational solidarity that used to exist, where people understood that one generation was caring for another and that the older generation had provided the education and the resources that people had access to. I think it's very sad that that's broken down, and we hear wonderful rhetoric about the big society, which I believe Mrs. Thatcher took away from us completely, and I just think it is incredibly sad. People are now living much longer. There are over half of the population is over the age of 50, so it's absolutely right that we continue to give people those opportunities, access to training, access to health, and indeed they can help and support younger people. What's happened to apprenticeships, where older people can start to encourage and support and educate and train younger people. So we shouldn't have a divisive society. We should be looking at the way different generations can actually bring their own strengths and skills to each other and enrich each other's lives.